Hello everyone, this is Jim Walker with Jim Walker Archery, and today I'm going to do a follow-up to my last video, which was about cheap and low-cost arrows. Now, if you watched the whole video, which was not very long, 8 or so minutes, you would have saw a few things in there where I talked about upgrading the arrows and doing a few things just to make it more usable. Now, in the previous clip, you saw just shooting 3 arrows at 15 yards, and the first 2 went in and the second one went wonky. This is the nature of these types of arrows, and but I like to talk about the bad and then the good. So last time we talked about them, and through a few weeks of sort of using them and playing around with my upgraded arrows, upgrading of the knock, crazy important. I found that was a necessary bit. Also the point, played with different point weights and found the right one that worked. The other bad thing about the arrow is, well, if you live in a windy area, the 5-inch arrow is not exactly the best. With the 5-inch arrows, they tend to, if you're going to shoot farther than, let's just say 20 yards, you're going to notice a performance hit on the longer fletching. I would recommend going with closer to a 3 or 4-inch fletching if you can. Also, another not so positive thing on these arrows is they're not always made of the type of carbon that you might think of a carbon arrow being made out of. In other words, this is sort of a carbon fiberglass mix. And it's an interesting watch, because if you take a similar carbon arrow and shoot, it'll just hit dead center and no wobble, boom. Fiberglass tends to be a little bit more flexible, particularly on longer ranges. That arrow, it takes the long way around to get to the target. But it does get there, and oftentimes remarkably well. All right, so let's talk about the good part of having the cheap and low-cost arrows, and that's simply that they're a fantastic way to test different ideas on how to modify and tune your arrow for accuracy. And one of the best things about them is you know, it gives you a great opportunity to really test your form. Get a video camera out, grab these cheap arrows, just shoot them. Just shoot a bunch of them. Look at your form. Also look at kind of your release method. These arrows actually force you to be a bit more accurate because you got to think about it. The arrows are going to kind of move around a little bit more. You have to be a bit more consistent in your draw. The other positive thing is that these arrows in general are just cheap. You can shoot them at any hard surface. You break one, you're not going to break the bank, you're not going to feel so bad. In our local tournaments here, we actually have iron targets where you actually shoot at a target with a little 3-inch hole in it from like 20 yards. Well, usually in a $15 arrow, I kind of don't want to do that. But a few $3 arrows, I can do that all day. Fun times. The other nice thing about the cheap and low-cost arrows is, again, that you can test the tuning process. If you have a bow like this one, just a classic recurve, you can play the heck out of it. Do things like take one of your arrows and cut it down an inch shorter. Find your arrow length. It's a great way to taking this low-cost arrow and getting the correct arrow length for your draw. And you can do that easily because these arrows are so cheap. Right out of the box, you can cut 1 or 2 down to different arrow lengths and shoot them and see how they feel. And then you can take what you learn there and apply it to more expensive arrows, cutting that is. There's also a lot of other good things you can do. Because it's a low-cost arrow, you can start playing with fletching. I didn't do it here today, but I have a new fletching kit, and I was going to cut these off and try different size arrows just to see how they fly. Another great thing for these cheap and low-cost arrows. So I highly recommend, if nothing else, if you're a beginner in archery, and you tried a couple expensive arrows, you're finding you're breaking them all the time, just go with this. You'll be a lot less conscious about shooting at rocks and trees and things. You just shoot, and you'll have fun doing it. Well, that's all I have to say about our cheap and low-cost arrow video today. And if you have any questions, please include them in the comments, and let's just have fun. Let's make some fun arrows. Let's have fun doing archery. All right, y'all have a good time, and you have a great evening.